On the Round Britain Climate Challenge, we are this evening in Grangemouth, where I've come to talk to one of our fantastic sponsors, Mark from Johnston Carmichael. First of all, thank you very much for coming on board as one of the sponsors to get this project off the ground, which was a pretty radical idea. Can we start, though, by having a summary of what exactly it is that Johnston Carmichael do?
Absolutely, and great to meet you, delighted to be here. So Johnston Carmichael is Scotland's largest independent accounting firm, but we're much more than the strapline suggests. So we're a full-service professional advisory firm, covering the spectrum of advice you'd expect to get from a professional firm. And in particular, I look after our energy, infrastructure and sustainability team, which is why I guess we had the opportunity to sponsor you, and we took that up.
Great. Now, to be completely honest, when we first had an introduction, I actually thought it was quite unlikely that an accounting firm, who I had assumed would be quite risk-averse, would come on board and support a project which is essentially flying a tiny little aircraft, which is at prototype stage, I think it can be said, all around the country. That seemed too risky a thing for an accounting firm to get involved with. So why did you want to support it?
It's an interesting observation, and I guess historically accounting is a conservative profession, and certainly Johnston Carmichael, founded 80 odd years ago from a very humble roots in Elgin. But I guess it's also a testament to how far we've come as a business, that we look for these opportunities to get involved with sponsoring things and supporting things that are slightly different and a bit risky, but actually also fits with our agenda in supporting climate change, and very much on the journey that we are with our clients who are embracing climate change across the spectrum. So it fits naturally, not only with the area that I'm involved in, but also I guess the progress that the firm's made over the last 80 years or so.
And what was it about the concept, what we're trying to do, that fit with what you're doing with bigger picture financing?
For me, I think it's the fact that you're trying to get across the climate emergency to everybody, because it can't just be for business, it can't just be for government. It needs to be for everybody to understand that they've got a role to play if we're going to reach the climate targets that have been set, should I say. So I just thought it was a great opportunity because it chimes with my own personal ambition. It very much from a family that are focused on doing the right thing. One of our core values as a firm actually is doing the right thing, and we see supporting you as exactly that. We want to encourage others to play their role in this systemic change.
And you've had a varied background. You haven't been in accounting your whole life. I know you had quite a few years playing rugby in New Zealand, and anyone can hear that there's a bit of Kiwi in accent. Has there been something in particular, a moment in your history in the past, that made you personally want to support things like this, interested in climate change, but also want to drive this particular department within Johnston Carmichael?
I don't think there's a specific event. I think I've always tried to live a life that's generally focused on doing the right thing. I generally do. Infrastructure and social environment has always been a big thing for me. My whole background has been in infrastructure generally, and I guess over the last decade, seeing that morph into renewables in particular, and now the wider decarbonisation agenda, and also very much the impetus from my children.
Yeah.
At home are all over this.
Yeah.
I think I was saying to you earlier, supermarkets, no plastic, very keen on the recycling, so it's just part of our DNA. So personally, it really resonated with me, what you're trying to do.
And as an accounting firm, or you are also looking at fundraising for interesting projects that you want to support. What kinds of projects are you fundraising for, and what are the challenges there for companies with great ideas at the moment? Yeah,
so within the team that I look after, corporate finance and fundraising is very much to the fore, and across the spectrum. So I guess the journey started maybe 10, 15 years ago with the Co-op Bank,
right? Really
helping them establish a project finance team and a project finance offering, because most projects of this nature require long-term project finance, and therein is a difficulty, is attracting money, enough money at the right stage in a project's evolution. And part of the reason that we're in this fantastic facility in Grangemouth is because I saw an opportunity to get involved with them to raise money at this embryonic stage, because it's an area that they were struggling in, but because I felt personally connected with what they're trying to achieve, I felt that I could help them raise that money.
Okay, and we were just about to talk about what that is, but can you give an idea of how much money needed to be raised?
For this particular project?
Yes.
Around 30 million.
30 million, okay.
But over my career, I think we've been involved in project finance raising of just under 2 billion for projects across the spectrum, all technology types and sizes, some embryonic, some innovative projects like Celtic, for example, but other more mainstream social infrastructure as well. Okay,
so at that point we have to mention where we are and what Celtic, as you said, refers to. At this point, Mark II, would you mind whizzing a chair into shot? We are right now in the new offices of Celtic Renewables here in Grangemouth. Can you summarise really quickly what Celtic Renewables is?
Yeah, so we have developed a technology that takes waste and residues, and we can convert that with a patented process into bio-based chemicals and other sustainable products.
Okay, and where we are positioned right now is actually right next to a very large petrochemicals, I would say factory, but it's more like a city from above. It's a very large area. But what you're trying to produce is actually very similar, but without the petrochemical.
Yeah, so we make solvents that are direct replacement for solvents that are currently 99.9% derived from fossil fuel. And that's the sort of transition the world needs to make, is to create these products from biological sources, waste and residues, from resources which are sustainable.
This sounds like a brilliant idea, exactly where we need to be headed. Why was this a challenge to raise the funds for?
Because what we don't have in the marketplace, either from the private sector or indeed public sector, is enough risk capital that people are willing to invest in something that's unproven. So this is pre-revenue, what we call in project finance, a pre-revenue stage. So project finance tends to come on the back of proven income streams,
right,
which this project will generate in due course. But for this first plant, that was difficult to convince people to come up with that money. So we had to be a bit innovative in terms of who we would speak to. The conventional funding market was difficult, but between us we managed to get there. And actually the Scottish Government has played a part in that, which is fantastic, and we're trying to get them interested in a longer term investment going forward, because actually the future now is transitioning this into the next 3 or 4 projects, and there's a strong pipeline. And so the future is very, very bright, but attracting that original money was quite difficult. It took 8 years. I've only been involved, probably about 3 or 4 years perhaps.
Yeah.
And so if you think about delivering the ambition in net zero, 8 years to get 30 million, there's a big hole in the funding.
Particularly if you look at the sort of numbers that are around, that are being bandied around against what we need actually to get to net zero and to stay under 1.5 degrees.
Correct, we're talking 400 or 500 billion. So there's a big ask, there's a lot of intent, there's a lot of policy, but what we need is businesses like Celtic Renewables to come together with the funding community to find a solution at the early stage. And
what was it then, if this was a risky concept, so it was an unproven technology at the time, so I'm assuming it had been proven in a lab and things like that, what was it that made you believe in this enough that you would put your time and energy behind it?
Mostly the people, so huge confidence in Mark and the team and Martin, a belief that what they were trying to do in terms of the circular economy is exactly where we need to be. This notion of taking a waste and converting it into a valuable commodity, particularly bio-based.
The circular economy?
Circular economy, wonderful. So for me personally, I felt strongly and passionate about it. A very credible, strong team. As you said, a proven technology at lab scale. So I felt it was something that I could take to my contacts and certainly get the money.
And at this point, would you have any advice for somebody who might be listening to this, who has an idea, but has struggled to get finance? Is there any particular things that need to be brought to the table?
Well, they need to be credible. They need to have a project that is ultimately backable. A strong management team, a real sense of commercial purpose. And then you're out there fighting for it. But what you're also seeing nowadays is the institutional funds who historically looked for safe haven. There's so much pressure on them now to invest a portion of money in green credentials.
Yeah.
So you're seeing a change in the atmosphere, that people are now looking at projects to take a bit more risk, a bit like the question to us at the start. So the landscape's changing. My question is it going to be quick enough to deliver what we need to deliver in the next 20, 30 years?
Thank you very much, both of you.
Pleasure.
For both being incredible sponsors of the Round Britain Climate Challenge, for helping it get off the ground in the first stage, and for being champions for us and being prepared to speak openly about your industry. For anyone who's been listening and has a great idea that needs financing, that might even have struggled to get financing in the past, then hopefully this advice has been useful. If you've been inspired by this story in general, please follow us on climatechallenge.live, YouTube and social medias. And if you're interested in particular in what was said about what you can do as an individual, don't forget to go to countusin.org, which will lay out exactly what can be done to tackle your own carbon footprint. Thank you very much again.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Now to sample some of the fantastic whiskey that I think is involved somehow in Celtic Renewables. I knew you'd find an excuse to drink whiskey as part of this.
Yeah, time for a lovely dram.
Absolutely. Warm up.